What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Got a special client interview today with my guy, John. John's been in the program the last few months and has absolutely killed it. So, don't want to see your thunder. John, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, say who you are, what you do.
My name's John. I own 402 Pitching Academy. I started with Nick. Oh, when was it? May? Started in May of this past or before last summer, so May of 2024, and then just been grinding out the program ever since. And yeah, things have been good. I'm a teacher by trade, so that's my day job. I coach baseball, and then obviously I started 402 Pitching Academy over the last year. I've actually been giving lessons for the last 5 years, and just decided I wanted to saw Nick's Instagram and wanted to see where it would take me.
Yeah, sweet. Sweet. Well, I just want to say thank you for jumping on. Let's take it back to like before we started working together. Obviously, you found me through Instagram. Um, Like, what were you kind of doing before, like, I guess we start working together?
So high school baseball coach, and then I was giving a ton of group lessons and a few one-on-ones. So I'd have anywhere from 6 to 8 kids in a group doing pitching training. It was just basically met with each group. So each group was like an hour-long session. Met with them once a week for an hour, and then I would do that anywhere. Sometimes in the fall, it'd be 2 nights a week, and then we'd get to January and February, it'd be anywhere from 2 to 4 nights a week. It'd get pretty busy, and then in the spring, March through May, I was just coaching high school baseball, and I'd shut it down. And I really was just looking for a way to get a little bit of my time back, but also I kind of knew that just meeting with kids 1 hour a week really wasn't getting the job done. I had a lot of kids who were like, "What can I do the rest of the time?" And I kind of would give them just like this half-hearted answer. I'd try and spell it out for them, and it just wasn't super clear. And I just felt like they needed more. And then also just on my end, like it was exhausting. I kind of realized that pitching training or pitching lessons is kind of a young man's game. And I'm 31, not and I'm not old by any means, but I have a wife and a daughter to worry about, and I just didn't want to lose any time with them. And so I just needed some way to still make an impact on kids because I really enjoy working with kids, but also just find a better way to serve them without losing all of my time essentially away from my family.
Definitely. Definitely. And so let's kind of fast forward to present day. How would you say that things are different now? Like, how have things changed?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not living in a facility anymore, so I I mean, it's been good. I've made significantly more than what I was making giving in-person lessons, if that makes sense. And I haven't given a lesson in the last couple months, so um, it's been good. It's still been a ton of work, like especially just to get things off the ground and get things to the point where I felt good giving it to kids and saying, "Hey, this will actually make you better than what we were doing previously, even in person." I still do a little bit of in-person stuff, and I think I'll continue to do that just because I really do like the idea of still seeing the kid's face and like getting them some quick feedback. But for the most of their work, it's going to be online, and and they'll have a program to follow. But the amount of time that I'm spending away from family and just living in a batting cage or living on a pitching mound is going to go down significantly, which I'm super excited about, just not only for myself but for my family. And then um, I also know that now that things are built out, the kids will have a solid program to follow that I know will get them better. And so, and that's really the main thing. I just wanted a better way to serve kids um, without necessarily without sacrificing anything, if that makes sense, or sacrificing their ability to get better, or giving them some, garbage program, if that makes sense. So it's still been a ton of work. Like I think that's really important for people to know. Like it's not just going to happen overnight. Like I've spent a ton of nights this summer of like recording videos and putting content together and you know building out systems for kids to follow and to build out their programs. But once it's built, you've got it, and then it makes life a lot easier. As you continue to iterate and improve on it.
Definitely. Definitely. What, what would you say in terms of like what we actually did together tactically in order to kind of get you to where you're at right now?
I think for me personally, first of all, I needed to like kind of change my mindset around just what remote training even is and how it can work and why it works. I think it's important that kids have, I mean, I knew that 1 hour once a week wasn't going to get the job done for a lot of these guys. And I told them that even in our lessons, but they didn't have any sense of direction outside of our time together. And so I think trusting that I could build something that they could follow, that they could improve, that would help them improve, I think was important. Um, and then I think just understanding like that what I'm doing is obviously I enjoy making an impact on kids, but also just like the business side of things in terms of marketing and sales and building out systems that streamline processes and things, I think is super important. And so a lot of the stuff that was discussed in the program was super helpful for that. And especially on the marketing and sales side, I think, for me, I spent the first half of the program honestly just learning content and learning how to like optimize my Instagram and how to just be consistent with building content. And I found that like there's ways to make it better and you just have to honestly just have to do it. And if you just start doing it, you'll get better at it. And I found that, my Instagram grew by 600 followers and I don't need to have 60,000 followers. I actually don't really even want that. I want 1,100 followers that really trust that I know what I'm doing and I can provide value to. And if some of those kids want to pay me, I don't need all of them to pay me, but a few of them that trust me enough to buy my program, then that's awesome. If they want to join in, and if they don't, and they can still learn something, that's great. Um, but I think just kind of wrapping my mind around that and just taking action on it, I think were the big rocks that I needed to move. And then after that, it was just like, okay, how do you actually build a program? How do you use some of these tools that can actually get kids better? That stuff doesn't really matter, honestly. You just have to start doing it, and then you'll kind of figure out what works.
100%. 100%. And I like how you touched on the fact that like you don't need a ton of followers to, make money through online training. Would you say that that's like a belief that a lot of people have that isn't true?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I've heard of people, and I know you mentioned it, but I've heard it from other people that have, you know, tens of thousands of followers and they're not making any money online. And it's just because they either aren't getting the right kind of client or they honestly don't have something that's solid enough to sell, right? Or they just don't really know what they're doing with it. And I kind of feel that way. I'm not really up there for followers. Like, I just let me help kids. And if someone likes what my message, then they will buy from me, right? And so that's really my goal with it. And I've found that just continuing to build trust. Like I've gotten a few buyers off Instagram. I've had a ton off of just local trust that has been built. That's been continued to be built off Instagram. Like the people that have already knew me, now they see me posting and they're like, "Oh yeah, we trained with that guy before. Let's sign up again." Or it's been easier to kind of kick the doors down, I guess, on other people in the area because they're like, "Oh, this guy, yeah, he's from my town. Like, I'm gonna go to him and see what he has to say and see what he can do." So, um, it's just been really good for building trust. And yeah, like you said, you don't need a ton of them; you just need the right ones.
Definitely. Definitely. What would you say are like some of the other beliefs or maybe like limiting beliefs that you had about like social media and online training before joining the program?
I definitely thought that content was something that was like hard to do. Like I would see some people with like all these crazy effects and all these just cut ups and I don't know, flashing lights and things. And you honestly don't really even need that. You just need to be consistent, is what I found. Like, if you're just consistently putting stuff out and you see what works and see what doesn't work, then you'll get better. You'll just get better at it. And I think that was the hard thing for me. And I was already kind of doing some content stuff, and it was horrible in hindsight. Like it was so bad. But the nice thing about doing that is I had already got my face out there a little bit. I had talked on camera a little bit, which I think was helpful for me because that was like even before I joined the program, like that was my biggest hurdle to get over. Was just like being willing to put my face on Instagram of me talking. And I think joining helped me kind of create a structure around it and to kind of learn, okay, here's some tricks of the trade. And not necessarily to be like super salesy because I don't necessarily like that either, but just, hey, here's the structure you need to actually get people to follow you and to make your stuff even digestible, right? Because before my stuff like wasn't even digestible, I don't think. And now at least like you can look at it and be like, oh yeah, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. You're hooked in, you gets a little value in there, and then you have something to actually take action on at the end, right? So just providing that was a big mindset shift for me. And just, hey, these guys aren't like rocket scientists, like they just have figured out how to do it.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who's watching this right now and is like, oh yeah, like content's not for me?
I mean, it's not for me either. Like I grew up on a farm in the small town in Nebraska, like, and I always thought like, oh, if I start posting this, people are gonna like, what the heck are people gonna think? What my and my I don't think my dad doesn't have Instagram. There's no way that he sees any of the stuff that I post, but like, some of my family members do, and I always was thinking like, man, what are they gonna think? And honestly, I've got nothing but positive feedback from it. Like I don't. And if someone has said, honestly, don't remember anyone that has said anything negative, and they probably have, but it's all been good. And so I think just having the stones to put yourself out there is the most important thing. And as you do it more, you'll get better at it. I promise you, you'll get better at it. And so, I mean, like I said, I still can't necessarily say that I love doing it, but I'm comfortable doing it. So, and I know that it works. And if it works and it helps me better serve athletes and helps me better support my family, then it's worth doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you're planning to, well, actually, I won't ruin it. What are your plans from here? Like, what are your goals from here?
Um, well, I mean, I'm gonna keep growing it, to be honest with you. Like I at some point, I'm locked into my teaching job for now, but I don't know if I'll do it forever. And so um, I'm gonna just keep doing what I can manage, and then once I get to a point where I feel comfortable, then um, I'll continue. I mean, I'll continue to grow it. Like I don't plan on stopping doing this because I really enjoy working with kids, and I know that it works, and I also know that there's potential there. It could be good for my family, and so yeah, my plan is to not stop. Right, once you know the tools of the trade, like you'll just keep growing on. You'll just keep building off of it. So
Definitely. I I think you touched on something really interesting there where you're like, once you know the tools of the trade, like you're not going to stop. Like, what was what was your mindset coming into the program? Like, what, like, how did you, I guess, like, what were you really looking to get? Because I know you've been watching my stuff for a while before you joined.
yeah, I think I stumbled across you in February of 2024, and then I was in the middle of baseball season, high school baseball season. I was like, there's no way I can start this and like give it the time and effort that it really needs. And so
Yeah.
then I waited till May. And by that point, I was pretty sold on what I wanted to do. You just hadn't dropped price. So I was like, I was a little nervous, but I was honestly willing to pay more than what you were charging. So um, I guess that's on you. But yeah, I was just thinking like, again, I going into it, I was like, lessons are an old man game. They're not. This is not a sustainable schedule. I need to figure out a way to continue to serve athletes because I will not. I'm not going to give that up, but do it in a way that's more free, I guess, from living in a cage. And it's also kind of interesting. So, like, my wife just got her yoga teacher training, and so now she's trying to figure out like she started doing it, and not a lot of people are showing up to her classes. I'm like, okay, well, people need to know about you, and here's how we can do it. And so, like a lot of the things that you talk about with like, okay, who's the ideal person you want in your yoga class? Who's the, you know, what do they need? What do they want? How do you want them to feel after they leave? These are all the things that I've obviously learned from you that I'm applying to my own training and to the own kids that I'm going after. But like now I can help her build hers out. And so it's kind of interesting to see her like realize that she needs help, and then think like sometimes she'll be like, well, how do you know this? I'm like, I learned it from Nick's program, but it's just how it works. Like it is what it is. Like I don't know what to tell you. And so um our other conversations will come up of just like business with its whether coworkers or friends, and I'm just like, yeah, here's how it works. I mean, this is what I've learned. So um I don't know, like those are just skills now that will serve me forever. Like even if I decide to move it, do something else, like I'm confident that I could build something just because I know kind of the marketing and the sales sides of things now, or at least I know them better. Like I'm not going to say I'm an expert at them by any means. It's going to take reps and time, but at least I have a good framework with which to start from.
100%. Yeah, and I think that is such a good mindset to have, like that it's really about the skill set that you learn, and like you are the asset that you are building, because now you have the confidence
Yeah,
that like yeah, like obviously if you weren't teaching right now, you know that you could probably get like 20 more guys in like not a short
right.
amount of time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yep, absolutely.
So for let's say somebody who's watching right now and they're like, who is this Nick guy? What do they do? Is this even for real? Like, how would you describe, like, from a client's perspective, like, what does the program kind of look like, and like, how was your experience within it?
It was good. So the once you're in, like I remember I devoured the course. I think within the first I know I got the first pillar knocked out within a couple days, and then I just devoured the rest. I think within the first couple weeks. And when I got started, it was like, okay, this is kind of a lot, but then you just kind of start chipping away at things. So I think the way that you have it structured, where it's like, okay, let's optimize your Instagram. Well, first of all, let's dial in like who do you want to serve? Who's your ideal client? Getting really clear on that, I think, is important. And then okay, how can we start to build a message around that? One huge like mindset shift for me was like selling before you even really had a program. Like that was just blowing like that was a hard hurdle for me to get over, right? So um really, I mean, because you have to have clients before you can even sell them something. I mean, if you got there doesn't make any sense to build out this huge thing when you don't even know what they necessarily need. And so um that was kind of stressful because I had a couple kids that signed on, and then I realized, okay, I got nothing for them. Like, here we go, let's go to work. And now that I've got it, it's good. But the way that the course is structured, just to kind of give you a kind of just a rundown of how to think about building your business, I think was really good. And then the content or the Zoom calls I thought were outstanding. Like I told you earlier, I didn't miss a Zoom call, I don't think, for 4 months, just because. And it wasn't necessarily like I needed questions. Well, I guess sometimes I did. I had questions, or I got answers to questions I didn't know I had yet. So like someone else would ask something, or you would have a Friday presentation over something. I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually super helpful. I didn't even realize that was kind of a roadblock that I was struggling with. So um, the Zoom calls honestly were worth the price in gold, I thought, because there's just so many little tidbits that I could just, oh, I really liked how this guy did this, or I really like how you mentioned something about how to think about sales. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm going to start using it. You just start building it in and add it in, and then you kind of make it your own, if that makes sense. And then you just kind of keep iterating. But yeah, I mean, once you knock out the course, then from there, I mean, honestly, it's on you. Like you got to go to work. So I think I knew that going in. I don't know if that I just don't know if people necessarily appreciate how much work it is to make it work. But the way things are laid out makes it pretty clear about what you need to do. And I think that's really what I needed. I think the biggest thing for me, and I know I feel like I'm rambling a lot, but Um, the biggest thing for me that I think it helped with, which is honestly just taking action. Like I learned a lot from your YouTube videos, but I didn't really start doing anything when I was watching them. It wasn't until I got in that I was like, okay, boom, I need to do this and then knock it out. Okay, I need to do this and then knock it out. And so it really forced me to like put pen to paper and let the rubber, actually get to work on some things. And I think that's probably the most important thing the whole program.
Yeah. The accountability of it.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
wanted to make my investment back. That was probably the biggest thing. I mean, I got a wife and a daughter that I can't just be like blowing money to some random guy on Instagram, right? So
why
I wanted to make sure it worked.
not? Don't say that. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah. But it worked. It worked. So it was well worth it.
Definitely. I would say like if you go on my YouTube right now, like there are presentations from the program on my YouTube channel.
Yeah,
And you know what's crazy is I'll send those to people in the DMs, and what do they do with the information? Nothing. And
right.
then they get
I
in the
mean,
program and they're like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." I'm like, "It's all my YouTube."
yeah, right. So I mean that was the biggest thing for me is like I literally just needed to start and jumping in forced me to start. And here we are. So it was worth it.
Absolutely. And I like the thing about it, it's the exact same thing I think with like coaching athletes, right? Like at the end of the day, if an athlete wanted to go out there and like study pitching mechanics, for example, and training and all that, like the information's out there for free.
Right.
It really is. But I think the benefit of having a coach or somebody who's been there before, whatever you want to call this relationship,
Yeah.
just having help of somebody who's been there before, like you're going to need to learn how to apply it,
Right.
right? So I think that's where the magic is. And on top of that, like you swipe the credit card, you're like, okay, now this is real. Like I have to do this.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of my thought. I was like, all right, I got one summer. I got one summer to get this right. And so I
Yeah,
had to take advantage.
definitely. Definitely. What would you say to somebody who's watching right now? Like, who would you say that this program is for and who is it not for?
Um, it's definitely for someone who like knows that they love training athletes, but they just need, but they also like can see the writing on the wall that maybe they don't want to just live in a batting cage forever. Like that was me, right? Like I knew that I wanted to work with guys forever. Like I never want to stop working with pitchers and helping them and pouring into kids. But I also knew that like it wasn't a sustainable livelihood for me. Like my time versus money earned in that sense, my time away from family versus money earned was not going to be worth it. And so I needed an avenue or I needed a way to still make an impact, but without sacrificing all that time. Um, the person that it's not for is someone who thinks like I'm in the program and like it's just going to all fall into place. Like
Mm.
it's still a ton of work. Like I cannot reiterate that enough. Like I've worked, I've I haven't given any lessons in the last 2 months, but I've still put a lot of time in because I'm still building, if that makes sense. And I know that as systems continue to get better, like I'll buy back my time. But like even right now, like there's still a lot of nights where I'm grinding, trying to get things built out. But things are slowly like picking up to where I can see how, okay, as we continue to build, this is going to get streamlined and it's going to continue to improve and it's going to continue to get more efficient. And um, it's still gonna help me reach my goals if that makes sense. But I think that's super important that whoever wants to enter, like you're gonna have to work and you're gonna have to put in a ton of time. And so, but in the end, like as long as you're willing to do those things, like you'll see results. Like it's worked for me, and I've worked my butt off. So, um, and I know it'll work for other people too.
Definitely. I appreciate that too because I don't want people to think that like it's super simple or like a get rich quick thing or anything like that. Like, dude, it does take work.
Yeah. I mean, it's no different than pitching. Like, I have kids that want like, give me, hey, can you give me 5 miles an hour in the next 3 weeks? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe, maybe it can happen for you. Like, if the conditions are right, like, let's say you've already got 60,000 followers on Instagram, but, I was starting from 500 and I had a lot of local trust, in the area. But in terms of an online presence, it wasn't super great. I had zero program to offer, right? So that took a lot of time to build out. And so if you're starting from scratch, I'm not saying it can't happen because obviously you have a ton of testimonials of people that it's happened for, but it definitely takes work. And even if you're at 60,000 followers, like if you don't have an online program, like you still got to build it. You still got to trust that it's good. So I don't know, just I guess it's definitely not like a get rich quick thing at all because you just you still have to put in a ton of time but you definitely need a structure and I think that's what's helpful.
Definitely. Definitely. How likely would you be to recommend, me and my team to somebody else who was maybe in your situation like 3, 4 months ago?
Yeah, I mean absolutely. Especially if they're the right if they meet those conditions, you know. Um I think I mean the biggest thing for me was to get started, like hybrid remote training, whatever it is, like it was always something I had in the back of my mind. And I had like one remote client that I had last winter, and I look back at what I was doing for him, and it wasn't good, and I was like, "Ooh, there's maybe something here," and I kind of like dabbled a little bit in some stuff, like posting things on Instagram and on Twitter, um, but I just didn't really know what I was doing, obviously, and so like if it's something that you want to do and you know that it's something that you should do if you still want to be involved in baseball, but obviously if you're like me where you just don't have your time, you're constrained by time, unlike when I was 25 and I had no family. But and if you actually want to like build a life, if that makes sense, then yeah, it's absolutely worth it. At least to get the ball rolling. At least it forces you to take action. I think that's honestly the most important thing.
100%. Because that's where action is, or that's where results are, is like through action.
Right.
What
And I just no, go ahead.
No, no, this is about you, dude.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like I needed to join to take the first step. And so if you need something to like kind of push you over the edge, like just bite the bullet and do it, because then you'll do it. Right. But if you think it's just like this, oh, I'm kind of interested, or me, I'm not really sure, like then it's not for you. Like don't do it. Like go watch all of Nick's stuff. And if you vibe with it, if you like it, then it's worth it. And if you're like, not super sure on the fence. Like when we had our first initial call, like I was already in. So like that's what sold me, honestly. So um and it just helped me get going, and that's all I needed.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you what you would say to somebody who's on the fence right now, but you kind of already hit it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, your YouTube is everything that you're going to get out of the program is on there. So in terms of, I guess what I should say is when I got in, I feel like my value was met, if that makes sense. So when I was like, obviously, when you're on the outside looking in, you're like, okay, is this for real? Like, yeah, it was good. I got everything out of it that I needed to get out of it. It was good.
Perfect. Is there anything else that you want to say to maybe anybody that's watching right now or about the program or anything like that that we didn't cover that you think would be helpful for somebody watching?
Um, I mean, I feel like at this point, if you're like, hey, if you're still watching this video and if you've consumed a ton of Nick's stuff on YouTube, then you're probably in and you probably just need to do it. So like that's like I don't really know what else to say, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know what like pushed me over the edge to like want to join. I think I was just like kind of sick of what I had been doing, or I just knew that the writing was on the wall that I wasn't going to do it forever. And I was like, okay, here's an option. Like, and if it's legit, and I know I called a couple other guys that were in and they said good things. And I was like, all right, we're going to do it. And so you just got to take the leap. And if you feel like you've seen enough of Nick's stuff that you trust him, then just do it. And if you feel like you haven't seen enough Nick stuff that you trust in, then just keep watching his stuff and just keep listening to more interviews and reach out to people. Like DM me on Instagram and I'll tell you what happened and what how it worked for me, right? And I'll just give you an honest answer. And so, um, I mean, I haven't told you anything that's a lie here, and I'm not necessarily here to like promote your program. I'm just telling you what my mindset was and where I'm at now. So, um, yeah, just message me, I guess, if you have questions or anyone else on Nick's story that he posts once a week of guys that are winning. So
Yeah. And if somebody wants to reach out to you or they want to kind of see what you're doing, where can they find you at?
I'm on Instagram. 402 Pitching Academy is my handle. I haven't really built out much of a YouTube. That'll be coming at some point. I haven't needed to yet, but um, yeah, just DM me on there. Give me a follow too, and then like my stuff, so that way more people see it.
Shameless
Shameless
plug.
plug. Yep, exactly.
Sweet. Sweet. Well, John, I just want to say I appreciate you so much. Um, I told you this before we were rolling, but I knew from the first call we got on that you were going to crush it. So I just want to say thanks for proving me right.
well, well, thanks for your help. And so, yeah, I'm glad I did it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'll wrap up here. If you're a coach and you're watching this right now and you want to get results like John, you want to get out of the facility, you want to free up your time, make more money, do all that great stuff, then booking a call with me or my team down below. We'll get you enrolled in the program. But John, I appreciate you so much and have a great rest of your day, everyone.